It was a cold February afternoon in 1957 when a man walking through the woods of Fox Chase, Pennsylvania, noticed something that didn't belong there. The trees were bare, their branches clawing at a gray sky, and the ground was stiff with winter. The man had gone there for quiet. Instead, he found a cardboard box. At first, it looked like trash. Philadelphia had a habit of swallowing things and spitting them out in forgotten places. Old furniture, broken toys, boxes like this one. But something about it stopped him. The box was tucked slightly off the road, half hidden among brambles, as if someone had tried, poorly, to make it disappear. He stepped closer. Inside the box was a child. The boy was naked, small, curled in on himself like he was trying to stay warm, even though the cold had already claimed him. His skin was pale, almost waxy, and his body was covered in bruises, deep purples and sickly yellows, layered on top of each other like a history written in pain. His hair had been roughly cut, uneven, as if someone had taken scissors and hacked at it in anger or panic. The man stumbled back. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't neglect. This was something darker. Police arrived soon after, and the woods filled with voices and boots and the sound of radios crackling to life. Officers carefully lifted the boy from the box, but there was no warmth left in him. No breath, no heartbeat, just silence. They estimated his age between 4 and 6 years old. No missing child report matched him. No one came forward. No one claimed him. They photographed his face. They documented every bruise, every scar, every small detail that might tell them who he was or what had been done to him. They took his fingerprints, even though they knew how unlikely it was that they would match anything. They examined his teeth. They examined his stomach contents. They tried to reconstruct his final hours. But the boy did not speak. And the dead, as everyone knows, keep their secrets well. The newspapers called him the boy in the box. It was an impersonal name for something deeply personal, but it was all they had. His face was printed in black and white across the country. His eyes stared out from newspapers on breakfast tables, gas stations, barber shops. A silent plea. Do you know me? Thousands of tips came in. A woman claimed she had seen a boy like him with a man on a bus. Another said she heard crying in the night from a nearby house weeks earlier. A psychic even contacted the police, claiming visions of water and a woman's hands. Every lead went nowhere. Meanwhile, the boy waited. They buried him in a small grave at Ivy Hill Cemetery. At first, there was no headstone, just a number, just another body in the ground. But people began to visit. They left toys, teddy bears, toy cars, flowers. Someone knitted him a scarf and laid it across the earth, as if warmth might somehow seep through the soil. It was as if strangers were trying to give him in death what he had never been given in life. Love. As the years passed, theories grew darker. Doctors determined that the boy had been severely malnourished. He had likely been abused for a long time before his death. Some believed he had been beaten. Others believed he had been starved. There were signs he had been washed after death, his fingernails clean, his hair freshly cut, as though someone had tried to erase evidence or guilt. The box itself was traced back to a bassinet sold at a local store. That detail haunted investigators. A box meant for a baby. A box meant for sleep, for safety. Instead, it became a coffin. People began to whisper about the house nearby. A quiet place. Curtains are always drawn. A woman who kept to herself. Children who were never seen outside. Nothing concrete. Nothing that could be proven. Just rumors that clung like fog. Decades passed. The world changed. Television became color. Men walked on the moon. Wars came and went. But the boy in the box remained frozen in time. Forever 4, or 5, or 6. Forever unknown. Police reopened the case again and again. New detectives, new methods, new hope. Each time, they came close enough to feel it, then it slipped through their fingers. One investigator later said that the case felt cursed, that every time they thought they were about to solve it, something would fall apart. A witness would die. A record would disappear. A confession would turn out to be false. It was as if the truth itself didn't want to be found. And then there were the stories. People who visited the woods at night claimed the air felt heavier there, even years later. Parents said their children refused to sleep after seeing the boy's photo in an old book or an online article. Some claimed to hear crying near the cemetery. Others said toys left on the grave would move, turning slightly between visits, as if played with by unseen hands. Rational explanations existed, of course, but horror doesn't live in logic. It lives in what we can't explain. One woman, decades after the body was found, came forward with a story so disturbing that even hardened detectives felt uneasy listening to it. She claimed her mother had bought a boy who fit the description, bought him, raised him in isolation, abused him, punished him, eventually killed him in a fit of rage and disposed of his body in the woods. The woman said she had seen it happen, but by the time she spoke, the mother was dead. The evidence was gone. The story could not be fully verified. Was it the truth? Or another ghost story clinging to a nameless grave? In 2013, police exhumed the boy's body. After more than half a century, they hoped modern DNA technology could finally give him back his name. Scientists worked carefully, extracting what little remained. Bone, teeth, fragments of a life cut short. The boy had waited long enough. The process took years, and while the world waited, people continued to visit his grave, continued to talk about him, continued to feel uneasy whenever his story resurfaced. Because there was something uniquely terrifying about it. A child could disappear, a child could be abused, a child could be murdered, and the world might never know who did it, or even who he was. Imagine his final moments. Alone, hurt, confused, looking for someone who never came. Imagine the sound of the box closing, the darkness, the cold. That is where the horror truly lives. Not in ghosts, not in monsters, but in what human beings are capable of doing when no one is watching. And the most terrifying part? Someone out there knew his name the entire time. They just took it to the grave with them. The investigators who worked the case used to say that every unsolved crime has a sound. Not a noise you can hear, but a pressure, a low, constant hum that sits in the back of your mind. With the boy in the box, that sound never went away. Every few years, someone would claim they knew something. A neighbor who remembered screams. A former social worker who recalled a strange visit. A man who drank too much and said things he shouldn't have said. Each time, detectives followed the trail with the same quiet hope, the same careful restraint. And each time, the trail ended in nothing. Dead ends, faulty memories, lies told for attention, truths told too late. The boy's face never changed. That photograph, grainy, black and white, was burned into the minds of those who saw it. His eyes were partially open, not staring exactly, more like caught mid-thought, as if death had interrupted him before he could finish asking a question. Some officers refused to keep the photo on their desks. Others kept it pinned up, not as evidence, but as a reminder. Don't forget why you're here. Don't forget who this is for. At night, some of them dreamed of him. One detective later admitted that he used to hear footsteps in his house after midnight when the case was active. Slow, careful steps, like a child trying not to be noticed. He would get out of bed, check every room, and find nothing. But when he returned to sleep, the dreams would come. A cardboard box, a small hand pressing against the inside, knocking once, then stopping. Psychologists would call that guilt, stress, the mind's way of processing trauma. But those explanations didn't stop the dreams. As time passed, the case slipped from headlines into folklore. Parents warned their children about wandering into the woods. True crime writers revisited the story with dramatic flair. Internet forums dissected every known detail, every photograph, every rumor, searching for patterns that police might have missed. People argued about whether the boy had ever been enrolled in school, whether he had been hidden away intentionally, whether his caregivers, if they could even be called that, were afraid of something. Afraid of being discovered. Afraid of him. There were whispers that he had been different, that he didn't behave like other children, that he was difficult, unwanted, an inconvenience. Those whispers were never proven. But even the possibility made the story more disturbing, because if it were true, it meant someone decided he was disposable. The cardboard box, after all, was not meant to preserve. It was meant to be thrown away. When DNA testing finally entered the picture, there was a sense that the boy was about to step out of the shadows at last. Technicians worked with fragments so fragile they threatened to crumble under their tools. Decades underground had not been kind. Still, they persisted, piece by piece, molecule by molecule. The boy had been silent for over 50 years. Now, at last, he was speaking in a language science could understand. While the tests were being conducted, reporters returned to Ivy Hill Cemetery. They filmed the small grave, now marked with a headstone that simply read, "America's Unknown Child." Toys still appeared there. Fresh ones, bright plastic cars, stuffed animals with clean fur and stitched smiles. Someone had even left a birthday card once and signed. People who never knew him mourned him. People who should have known him never came. There's something deeply unsettling about collective grief for someone no one remembers personally. It's as if society itself is trying to make up for a failure. As if, by leaving gifts, we are apologizing. We didn't protect you. We didn't see you. We're sorry. When the DNA results were finally ready, law enforcement held their breath. Databases were checked. Genealogical trees were built. Names flickered briefly on the edge of possibility, then disappeared again. But this time, something was different. This time, the trail didn't go cold. It led to families who had lost children, to stories that didn't quite line up, to gaps in memory that felt deliberate rather than accidental. And slowly, painfully slowly, a picture began to form. The boy had a name. For the first time in his short existence, he was more than a box, more than a photograph, more than a mystery. But names bring consequences, because once you name the victim, you must face what was done to them. When authorities publicly identified him decades later, many felt relieved. Others felt anger. Some felt sick. The truth was not comforting. It was not poetic. It was not just. It was ordinary. The boy had been born into a situation where he was unwanted, where violence was easier than care, where silence was safer than compassion. There were no cults, no grand conspiracies, no cinematic villains, just people who failed him, and perhaps one who actively harmed him. The horror of the boy in the box isn't that he was hidden so well. It's that he was hidden in plain sight. Someone fed him. Someone cut his hair. Someone washed his body after he died. Someone placed him gently, or not so gently, into that box. That means there were moments when a choice could have been made. And every time, the wrong one was chosen. Even after his name was known, some questions remained unanswered. Why didn't anyone speak sooner? Why didn't neighbors notice? Why didn't institutions catch the signs? Why is it so easy for a child to vanish? Those questions echo louder than any ghost story, because they don't belong to the past. They belong to now. People still visit the grave. They say the atmosphere has changed. It feels quieter, lighter somehow, as if something unfinished has finally been laid to rest. Others disagree. They say the sadness feels sharper now, more defined, as if knowing his name made the loss more real. One visitor claimed that when they stood there alone at dusk, the wind picked up suddenly, rustling the leaves around the headstone. And for just a moment, they felt like they weren't alone. Not in a frightening way, not threatening, just present, like someone standing beside them, looking down at the toys. The story of the boy in the box is not a story about a haunting spirit roaming the woods. It's not about curses or demons or shadows in the dark. It's about neglect. It's about cruelty. It's about how evil doesn't always announce itself with screams. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it locks the door. Sometimes it closes a cardboard lid and walks away. And if that doesn't scare you, it should, Because monsters like that don't live in stories. They live next door. When the boy was finally given his name, many expected the nightmare to end. Names have power. Names make things real. For decades, he had been a symbol, an idea, a ghost wrapped in cardboard. Now he was a person again. But closure didn't come the way people hoped. Instead, something heavier settled over the story. Because knowing who he was forced the world to confront who he had been to the people around him. Not a mystery, not a legend, just a child who had lived quietly, suffered quietly, and died quietly. The official details painted a picture that was almost unbearable in its simplicity. He had been moved from place to place. He had been unwanted. He had been punished not for what he did, but for what he represented, a responsibility someone never wanted to carry. No dramatic final confrontation. No moment where someone tried to save him at the last second. Just a slow erosion of care. People often imagine evil as loud and violent, but this was something different. This was neglect dressed up as normal life. Meals skipped, doors locked, voices raised behind closed walls where no one else could hear. And eventually, a breaking point. What happened in his final hours was never fully reconstructed, but the evidence told enough of the story to make investigators look away from the photographs. The bruises, the signs of repeated harm, the small body that never had a chance to grow strong. The haircut after death was one of the details that disturbed them the most. It suggested planning, or panic, or shame. Someone had stood over him, scissors in hand, and decided how he would be seen by the world. That moment lingered in the minds of those who studied the case. Because that was not the act of a stranger. That was the act of someone who knew him. As the news spread, people who had followed the case for years reacted in different ways. Some cried, some felt angry, some felt numb. A few admitted they wished they had never known the truth at all. Mystery, after all, creates distance. Truth brings you uncomfortably close. Online, debates erupted. Could justice still be served? Was it fair to assign blame so many years later? Were the people responsible victims of their own circumstances? Or should they be remembered as monsters? But the boy didn't get to debate anything. He didn't get to grow up. He didn't get to explain who hurt him or why. He didn't get to forgive. All he got was a box. There's a strange phenomenon that happens with cases like this. Even after answers are found, people continue to feel watched by the story, as if it isn't finished with us yet, as if remembering is part of some unspoken obligation. Teachers still mention him in criminal justice classes. Detectives still bring up the case when training new recruits. Parents still stumble across his photograph late at night and close the browser quickly, hearts pounding. And somewhere, in the back of the mind, a quiet question forms. How many others were never found? How many boxes were never opened? Some visitors to the cemetery claim that the toys left on the grave never stay the same for long. They disappear and are replaced, weathered by time, taken by caretakers, or perhaps by something else. No one knows, and no one says it out loud. But they keep leaving them, as if the act itself matters more than the explanation, as if it's a promise. You are seen now. You are not forgotten. The woods where he was found have changed. New growth, new paths, children playing nearby, laughing, unaware of what once lay hidden among the trees. Life goes on as it always does, but some places remember, and some stories refuse to fade. The boy in the box does not ask to be feared. He does not demand belief in ghosts or curses. His story doesn't need embellishment, because the real horror is this. He lived in a world full of people, and still, no one saved him. If you listen closely, that's the sound the case makes. Not a scream, not a cry, just silence. The kind that follows when something terrible happens and everyone looks away. And maybe that's why his story still matters. Not because of how he died, but because of how easily it happened, and how easily it could happen again.